guys, and welcome back to Art a la Carte. So as promised, you guys, I asked if you want to see a tutorial on how I drew this, created this cool little leaf dragon. So I'm gonna show you here. So I just finished transferring this over to my paper, but let me talk a little bit about my original sketch. I get a lot of requests on how to draw dragon tutorials, and I like to change things up. I actually haven't drawn a lot of dragons before I started doing these videos and started getting requests for more and more dragons. So I'm actually learning how to draw dragons right along with you guys. So I do a lot of practicing before I actually draw them. And I like to kind of change things up, try to think outside the box. So I've done a lot of large scale dragons and powerful, strong dragons. And I thought, well, let's try something opposite. Let's go something really small. Let's go something really kind of delicate, fragile, opposite of what I've been drawing. So I started thinking about different themes for dragons, and I decided to do a leaf dragon. So I went and got some reference photos of different leaves and just tried to find some inspiration. What if leaves were actually dragon wings, or what if dragon wings look like leaves so they get kind of camouflage in? And I found a couple pictures. One was some strawberry leaves that were just fanned out so cute. I thought those would just make such fun little ruffles around the dragon's face right here. And then I found some other really nice leaves. I don't even know what kind of leaves they are, but these just fun leaves. And I thought that'd be fun to kind of make those like the wings. And then there's these kind here that I think they come from a maple tree. I don't know, they have a little seed pod and they always flutter down. So I got a lot of different ideas. So once I decided kind of the theme that I wanted with my dragon, then I decided I had to kind of creature base it. So a lot of my dragons are based on lizards or dinosaur base or snake base, serpent base. So I decided to go with kind of a tree lizardy, gecko-y kind of creature. So I gave him just the very thin little legs with kind of the chameleon gecko-ish kind of 3 toes, and then gave him just really a swooping shape. So you can see in here that I started off with my shape circles right in here, and you can vary these however you want. You might want to, a really more slender, almost snake-like. I gave him a little bit of weight in the middle and then tapered it off, and you can change that. And that's what's super fun about creating these different types of creatures that come from your mind is there's no cut and dry with it. It's however you want to create it. But I did go ahead and give him just this really sleek neck and gave him the the definite 4 little legs, and then created his wings, and I did them kind of as clusters of feathers, not feathers, did them as clusters of leaves rather than one just gigantic kind of like a batish wing. I wanted to really keep him that camouflage that he would need for hiding and keeping himself from predators. Because I don't think this guy has a lot of defenses other than just maybe being really, really fast or agile. So I actually was doing this on a scrap paper just to practice before I did a tutorial video, and just really created this really super fun dragon that I really, really loved. So I went ahead and transferred him to my illustration board, and if you want to see my artist hack on how I did that, I have a video, art hacks, transferring your drawings over, and I'll put a link to that in the description box below. You can check that out to find out how really, as long as you have a pencil and paper, you can create the tools that you need to be able to transfer your artwork over. So I have this really, really light sketch, and it's done with graphite, so I can go and erase anything I want to, but it kind of just gives me an idea of what I want to do here. So now, because we're kind of coming into the stage of this drawing where it's kind of already set up a little bit, now we can begin to define out our creature a little bit more with our lines. And I also kind of want to decide what I want to do with him. So I really want to add some color to him. And you have to decide, do you want to do watercolor or color pencils or crayons or markers or whatever. And I think I want to do a little bit of watercolor and then adding colored pencils on top of that. So what I want to do is I want to darken in just a little bit of the outline of his body, just very lightly. I'm not going to do the wings, but I want a little bit more focus on his actual body. So I'm just going to kind of darken and clear those lines up just a little bit before I go starting to add in my watercolor. A lot of my videos I have are how to draw videos where I take you through step by step on how to create the exact drawing that I'm doing. This one I don't have, it's titled that. I have creating a leaf dragon because I want to take you through the processes, but I don't see how I could teach you how to draw line for line this. For one, I'm in the midst of creating this myself. I don't know what line is going to come next or what I'm going to do. And the purpose of this video is I want to share that creative process, what's going through, you know, my pencil, what's going through my mind, the steps I take to achieve that, to take the idea of whatever it is that I'm creating when I'm drawing and make it their own. That's where true magic for art comes in, is really allowing yourself to be creative with your art and to be your own artist, not to just totally copy line for line. That's where it becomes super duper fun. So with that being said, I'm going to grab my watercolor water right here. Just in case you're wondering, I'm wearing my Tinkerbell pajamas because that's how artists do. Because he's a leaf dragon, I'm going to have a lot of just leafy greens and things like that. And because he's really a small dragon, I want to pull out my small brushes. The watercolor I'm going to be using is just going to be the base color. I'll do a lot of the highlights and shadows with my colored pencils instead. I'm just going to pull these colors in. So you'll see I'm just working this color almost like you would a marker. I'm just laying it nice and flat. I'm moving really fast because I don't want my paints to dry. Otherwise I'll get kind of a layered look. And I don't want like a layer to my washes. I want it to be nice, flat color. I kind of think this is the effect one would get if they were using some really expensive markers like Copic markers. You could get that really flat look. I don't have that in the finances to purchase Copics, so I'm just kind of having to make do with this instead, which I find works pretty well for me. I like it. It's a little bit more challenging on some papers. Alright, so I got that laid in there. Now I'm going to go just a little bit darker. I want his wings and kind of leafy bits to be a little bit darker, so I'm pulling out a bit darker of a color. Before I was using this kind of really light green. I'm going to go with this a little bit darker green and maybe just pull in just a little bit of this pine green here to get it darker. And I'm going to test this out on these side leaves here. I want to leave his eyes really clean because I'm going to figure out what color I want them to be. I want them to really kind of stand out. I'm just tapping this color in. So it's a nice, darker, vibrant, leafy color right there. And you'll see my leaves are really uneven as well. Kind of wanted to give them that kind of bug-eaten feel. I think that'd be part of this camouflage to not be the perfect leaf. And if you want some more kind of detailed lessons on using watercolor, I have a whole series called Watercolor 101. I would definitely encourage you to check those out. I kind of take you through the steps and processes of purchasing watercolor paper and paint and brushes, and then beginning on how to use them. So I think it can be really, really helpful. Again, just moving really, really fast. Now, see how I got a little speck here? I'm going to try to pick that up with my paintbrush, you don't want to let that dry because it's actually going to, if you have any dirt in your paints, or I actually have glitter that got into my paints. I'm not exactly sure what I was doing. I think I was painting with glitter, but somehow I cross-contaminated a couple of my wells, and they still have a little bit of glitter in them. Ooh, the fun things artists do to their art supplies. But every once in a while I'll find a little glitter piece. But if you leave any kind of hair or dust in your paint, sometimes it'll draw the paint to around that object, and it will create kind of a pattern. Even when you remove it after it's dry, you'll see this kind of little dusting of texture. And it might be something you want. A lot of artists will do that. Will put things on my paints if I want a specific texture. You can use sand or salt, like plastic wrap, lots of different things to create textures. But if you don't want them, you have to keep everything nice and clean. Back there. So I have his base kind of in there. I'm just going to quick put a little bit of color right here on this stem here. He's clinging to. I don't know, I could totally see like fairies training these and getting these guys to be kind of like their own little dragons they ride around, just like the tiny little fairies would ride them. So there we go. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this kind of dry a little bit, and then I'm going to come back with my colored pencils and begin to play in some color layers with that. Alright, so he's pretty dry now, so I'm going to go ahead and begin adding some colored pencils. Now this is by no means a colored pencil tutorial. I know a lot of you guys have been asking for a colored pencil tutorial or a series, and I will be working on that. But in these techniques you can use with any kind of color that you're going to be using that you can layer up. And I'm going to probably end up doing a lot of this more in time lapse. But I'm going to start laying in these colors, and again just building up my value. Remember, value is the lightness or darkness of your tone or your color. So here I'm creating in some more shadows, and I'm just laying this color right in on top of my watercoloring. Because I want to be able to push things back and pull things forward and just create. Because right now he's really kind of flat looking. So by adding in that extra little shadow and highlight, you'll really begin to see very quickly that pulls things out, pushes things back, helps give that dimension to your drawing. And again, you can do this. I can do this effect with my watercolor, watercolors when I paint. I can do it with just my regular pencil with lead. Don't be afraid of getting that value in there. A lot of times we'll just add the same texture or shade all the way across the entire drawing, and it just flattens everything out. And we don't want that. You want it to really begin to look dimensional. And my suggestion for that is to go slow. Add the color in little by little. You'll see I'm going really lightly with these shades. I'll probably get a lot darker as I go. And it's always easier to add more color to something. It's really hard, especially with colored pencils, to lighten something up after you've laid that color in there. So I would definitely take it slow, nice and careful, and build your colors up. Don't be afraid to change up colors. Don't think just because this little dragon here is all green that you only can use green. You'll see later on as I get into more of the colors, I'll pull in some blues and purples to kind of help add in extra shadows. By using those other colors in there, you're adding just a little bit of variety to your drawing, adds a little bit of interest, and you'll find that actual real shadows and highlights aren't always just a brighter or darker shade of the original, that they are often, you know, a different kind of shade. They're, you know, when you see snow and there's shadows on snow, it's not just gray. It's blues and purples and reds, and it's the reflecting of light. So let that be in part of your drawing as well. Don't be afraid to add those colors. It just adds a little spark of something to it. I just finished laying in the initial first layer of shadowing, and I used a olive green color pencil for that. And so now I'm going to go back in. I'm going to try out this this grass green here and just kind of see what color I like. It's a little bit brighter, so I'm going to kind of come in into some of the places that I want a richer, warmer shadow. Lay that in there. And it's fun to use different tones of colors. You know, I'm going to shade with green, but I won't use always the same shade. You know, kind of spice it up a little bit and try out different shades as well. So you'll see right here, I kind of just outlined this leaf a little bit. I'm going to push back some color here. It's going to pop that front leaf out just a little bit. Kind of clarify that up just a bit. Really working in getting those veins in the leaves there. Kind of very lightly drawing at how the veins would go. Just very carefully, and then just kind of working that shadow in around there. With this lighter shade, I'm kind of adding kind of a little pattern to his skin. I'm kind of giving him this little green stripedness. And the thing you want to be really careful with is that you aren't getting that stroke in there with your pencil line. So I'm really going softly, and I'm going almost in little circles so that you're not seeing this up and down or side to side kind of pencil stroke. It's looking like it's just blending right on in with him. So now that I got to this part here, I'm going to switch over to this indigo blue, and I'm going to start putting in some shadows. Pull in that blue tone. And I want to make sure that that just gradients off, so I'm going to get nice and dark in my corner there where I want the contrast between that really light shade of the leg and the dark shadow in here. And then I'm going to gradient that out. So I'm going to just pull that color down, and as it goes, I'm just going to lighten it up a little bit. Same thing over here. I'm going to get this nice dark corner here, and then as I pull this out, it's just going to get lighter and lighter and lighter until it gets underneath this one, and it's going to get a little dark again. Here, you'll just see as you get those nice deep darks in there, it just really begins to pull something into your drawing. It just brings it to that next level. going to try a little bit of Tuscan red just to see what that kind of does. Just a little bit of it. Just test it out. If it doesn't look good, you can kind of cover over it with some more color. But I kind of like it. It kind of puts a little bit more of a natural tone to him. A little bit of that brown. I'm going to use that a little bit more, I think, in his leaves. And this Tuscan red a little goes a long way, so I don't want to make him look like he's bleeding or anything. So I'm just going to lay down a little bit of this color, and then what I'll do is I'll pick a different shade of, I'll try a little bit of this blue maybe. And just kind of start blending those colors together. It'll give just a little interest because you'll see a little bit of the red, a little bit of that blue. I'll try a little bit of this slated blue here, kind of a bluish gray shade. Really, really lightly. Now I want to have a really kind of chartreuse. Who knew? I'm going to start scrubbing in some deeper color. Even though it's a lighter shade, I want to kind of blend some of this up here. Look like a little bit of like a sunlight hitting it or something. And pull a little bit of that down into his body there. So kind of blend those stripes in there. What are some things that you will need to be able to do a picture like this? Supplies, you know, a good paper, pencils, and whatever you choose to color with. I use watercolor and color pencils. But the tools aren't as important as you're going to need a lot of time to practice. Something like this is going to take a lot of time understanding shading and value and highlighting, texturing, layering up your colors, things like that. But probably the number one thing you're going to need to achieve a picture like this is time. In all the years of my beginning art, I didn't have a lot of dedicated teachers that could give me one-on-one evaluation. And I believe looking back on my art, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, as opposed to now, the difference isn't so much the skill. I have gained a lot of skill, but I had the ability to create something like this, but I was impatient. I wasn't willing to put in the time and effort needed to really produce something with this much detail. And I see that in a lot of my art students who bring in their artwork and show me they have great potential, and the pieces that they produce are good, but they can be great. And that's just by pushing yourself to do the time needed for that intricate work, and not just to rush through something, to really go, okay, I want to spend the time with this. And probably 75% of the time in this is taken up by my practicing other things, practicing on other paintings and pictures that I did that failed, that weren't a failure, that it went into then creating this piece. That failed piece that I did here taught me the thing that I needed to learn to be able to do this technique and that technique. And so all these things put together is way more than the 2 or 3 hours I'll spend just on this piece. The 100 hours before this of practicing and working and getting myself to look and see things, to see the textures in leaves, to see how shadows fall, how light reflects, all those things, the time needed. Allow yourself the time you need to learn. Don't expect instant results, and don't get frustrated when you don't see instant results. Play that time and do that. Give yourself the time to create, to learn. It's the biggest probably advice that I can give you guys. I get so many questions from you guys on, give me some advice on how to get better at art. And of course practicing is that, but time practicing. and allowing yourself to fail and allowing yourself to learn from your failures, because it's without those, you're not going to learn the keys to success. You're not going to learn the keys that you need to master the techniques and the art form that you're trying to create. So yeah, enough rambling. My little guy is still far from done.